The words slithered across the white tablecloth like poison. "One more word, Clare, and I swear to God I'll strangle you right here." Marcus's voice was barely above a whisper, but the venom in it made Clare's breath catch in her throat. His hand was wrapped around his wine glass so tightly she could see his knuckles turning white, and there was something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Something dark. Something that made her stomach twist with genuine fear. She'd only asked where he'd been last Tuesday night. A simple question. The kind of question a woman asks her boyfriend of 6 months when she finds lipstick on his collar that isn't her shade. But the way Marcus was looking at her now, you'd think she'd committed an unforgivable sin. "I'm sorry," Clare heard herself say, hating how small her voice sounded. "I didn't mean to upset you, You just can't keep your mouth shut, can you?" Marcus leaned forward, and Clare instinctively pressed herself back against the velvet booth. "This is exactly why no man has ever wanted you long-term. You're exhausting, needy, pathetic." The restaurant was one of those expensive Italian places in downtown Chicago, the kind with dim lighting and soft piano music that was supposed to be romantic. Marcus had insisted on coming here for their 6-month anniversary. Now Clare understood why. In a place like this, where everyone spoke in hushed tones and minded their own business, he could say anything he wanted without causing a scene. Tears burned behind Clare's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of him. She was 32 years old, a perfectly capable accountant with her own apartment and her own life, and she would not cry because some man was being cruel to her, even if that man was someone she'd thought she might be falling in love with. "I think I should go," Clare said quietly, reaching for her purse. Marcus's hand shot across the table and grabbed her wrist. Not hard enough to bruise, but firm enough to freeze her in place. "You're not going anywhere. We ordered the lobster ravioli. It's $150. You're going to sit here, eat your food, and stop embarrassing me." "You're hurting me," Clare whispered. "I'm barely touching you. God, you're so dramatic." That's when she saw him. The waiter had appeared beside their table so quietly, Clare hadn't noticed his approach. He was tall, probably 6'3", with dark hair pushed back from a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes so intensely blue they seemed to see right through you. He wore the standard uniform of the restaurant staff, all black with a white apron. But something about the way he carried himself suggested he didn't really belong in a waiter's uniform. There was an authority in his posture, a controlled power in the way he stood perfectly still, watching Marcus's hand on Clare's wrist with an expression that made the temperature in the room seem to drop 10 degrees. "Is everything all right here?" The waiter's voice was smooth and deep, with the faintest trace of an accent Clare couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe, or something close to it. Marcus released Clare's wrist and plastered on a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Everything's fine. We're just having a conversation." It didn't look like a conversation. The waiter's gaze hadn't moved from Marcus. "It looked like you were hurting the lady." "I think I know how to handle my own girlfriend, thanks," Marcus said, his voice taking on an edge. "Why don't you go get us some more bread or something? Isn't that your job?" The waiter tilted his head slightly, and something flickered in those blue eyes. Something dangerous. "My job is to make sure everyone in this restaurant has a pleasant evening, and I don't think the lady is having a pleasant evening." Clare's heart was pounding. She should say something, should diffuse this situation before it got worse. But there was something about the way this stranger was looking at Marcus, like he could see exactly what kind of man he was, that made her stay silent. "Look, buddy." Marcus pushed his chair back and stood up, puffing out his chest in a way that would have been comical if the situation wasn't so tense. "I don't know who you think you are, but you need to back off. This is none of your business. When a man threatens a woman in my restaurant, it becomes my business." "Your restaurant?" Marcus laughed, but it sounded forced. "You're a waiter. You don't own anything. Now get lost before I speak to your manager about your attitude." The waiter smiled then, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile a wolf might give before it struck. "Please do. I'd love to hear that conversation." Something in his tone made Marcus hesitate. Clare watched her boyfriend's face cycle through confusion, then irritation, then something that looked almost like uncertainty. She'd never seen Marcus uncertain about anything. "Come on, Clare, we're leaving." Marcus threw his napkin on the table and grabbed his jacket. This place is a dump anyway. But when Clare started to stand, the waiter spoke again. "The lady doesn't have to go anywhere she doesn't want to go." It was such a simple statement, but it hit Clare like a thunderbolt. When was the last time someone had reminded her that she had a choice? That she didn't have to do what Marcus wanted just because he wanted it? "Actually," Clare heard herself say, and she was shocked by how steady her voice sounded, "I think I'm going to stay and finish my meal." Marcus's face went red. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. I'm staying. You can leave if you want." For a moment, Clare thought Marcus might explode. She could see the rage building behind his eyes, could see his hands clenching into fists, but then he seemed to remember where they were, seemed to notice the way the waiter had shifted his weight almost imperceptibly, positioning himself between Marcus and Clare. "Fine," Marcus spat. "Stay here with the help. You two deserve each other. Don't bother calling me when you come to your senses." He stormed out of the restaurant, nearly knocking over a busboy on his way to the door. The moment he was gone, Clare felt like she could breathe again, but her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together in her lap. "Are you all right?" The waiter's voice had changed completely. The dangerous edge was gone, replaced by something gentler. Concerned. "I'm fine," Clare said automatically, then let out a shaky laugh. "Actually, no, I'm not fine. I'm sitting alone in an expensive restaurant after my boyfriend just called me pathetic and stormed out. I'm pretty far from fine." "He's not worth your tears." Clare looked up and found the waiter watching her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. "I'm not crying." "No, you're not. You're stronger than he deserved." Something about the way he said it made Clare's chest feel tight. She didn't know this man at all, but he'd just stood up for her in a way no one had in longer than she could remember. "Thank you," she said softly, "for what you did. You didn't have to get involved." The waiter pulled out the chair Marcus had vacated and sat down across from her, completely ignoring the fact that he was supposed to be working. "Yes, I did. Men like that, they think they can treat women however they want, because no one calls them out on it. Someone needed to remind him that there are consequences. He's going to complain to your manager. You could get in trouble." That wolf smile appeared again. "I'm not worried about my manager. Still, I don't want you to lose your job because of me. I promise you that's not going to happen." He reached into his apron and pulled out a small card, sliding it across the table to her. "My name is Luca Moretti, and I own this restaurant." Clare picked up the card with trembling fingers. It was heavy stock, expensive, with embossed lettering that read Moretti's, and beneath it, Luca Moretti, proprietor. "You own this place?" Clare looked around at the elegant dining room, the crystal chandeliers, the original artwork on the walls. This wasn't just a restaurant. This was an empire. "Then why were you waiting tables?" "I was filling in for someone who called in sick. I like to stay involved in all aspects of my business." Luca leaned back in his chair, studying her with those impossibly blue eyes. "Besides, if I hadn't been on the floor tonight, I wouldn't have met you." There was something in the way he said it that made Clare's pulse quicken. This was insane. She'd just ended things with Marcus, or rather, Marcus had stormed out on her. And here she was feeling butterflies because a gorgeous restaurant owner was looking at her like she was the only person in the room. "I should probably go," Clare said, even though the last thing she wanted to do was leave. "I don't even know if I can afford the meal Marcus ordered." "You're not paying for anything tonight. It's on the house. I can't accept that." "You can. And you will." Luca's voice was firm, but not unkind. "And you're going to stay and eat the lobster ravioli because it's the best thing on the menu, and you deserve to have something good tonight. Okay?" Clare wanted to argue, but something in Luca's expression told her it would be pointless, so instead she nodded. "Okay." Luca smiled, and this time it reached his eyes, transforming his entire face. He was devastatingly handsome when he smiled like that. Good. Now let me go check on your order, and then if you don't mind, I'd like to join you for dinner, unless you'd prefer to be alone. No, Clare said quickly, then felt her cheeks flush. I mean, I'd like the company, if you're sure you have time. For you, I'll make time. He disappeared into the kitchen, leaving Clare alone with her racing thoughts. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. Handsome restaurant owners didn't rescue women from terrible boyfriends and then ask to have dinner with them. This was the plot of a romance novel, not real life. But when Luca returned 20 minutes later with 2 plates of the most delicious-looking pasta Clare had ever seen, she decided that maybe, just maybe, she could let herself believe in romance novels for one night. They talked for hours. Luca told her about growing up in his family's restaurant in Naples, about coming to Chicago 10 years ago with nothing but a dream and a family recipe for marinara sauce. He'd built Moretti's from the ground up, turning it into one of the most sought-after reservations in the city. Clare told him about her job at the accounting firm, about her small apartment in Lincoln Park, about how she'd moved to Chicago from a tiny town in Iowa because she wanted adventure and excitement. She didn't mention that she'd found precious little of either until tonight. So, Marcus, Luca said, swirling wine in his glass, how long were you with him? 6 months, which I know isn't that long, but it felt longer. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. Bad relationships have a way of stretching time. Clare laughed softly. That's exactly it. He wasn't always like he was tonight, though. Or maybe he was, and I just didn't want to see it. He could be charming when he wanted to be. Attentive. But lately, there's been this edge to him. Like he was angry all the time, and I was just a convenient target. Men like that don't change, Luca said, his voice taking on that hard edge again. They just get better at hiding who they really are until they think they have you trapped. Trapped, Clare repeated. Yeah, that's exactly how I've been feeling. Like I was stuck in this relationship because I'd already invested 6 months. And what if this was as good as it gets, you know? What if no one else wanted me? Luca set down his wine glass and leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. Clare, look at me. She did. Any man would be lucky to have you. The fact that you stayed with someone who made you feel small says nothing about your worth and everything about his ability to manipulate. You understand that, right? Tears welled up in Clare's eyes again, but this time she let them fall. I don't know. Maybe. Not maybe. Definitely. Luca reached across the table and took her hand in his. His palm was warm and rough with calluses, the hand of someone who worked hard for what he had. You are remarkable. You're smart, you're kind, you're beautiful, and you have more strength than you give yourself credit for. Marcus is an idiot for not seeing that. Clare's breath caught. No one had ever talked to her like this before. Like she was precious. Like she mattered. You barely know me, she whispered. I know enough. I know you could have made a scene tonight, but you didn't. I know you could have cried and fallen apart, but instead, you stayed and had dinner with a stranger. I know that you have fire inside you, even if that jerk tried to put it out. They sat there in the quiet restaurant, the last customers long gone, just looking at each other. Clare knew she should pull her hand away, should thank Luca for the lovely evening and go home. But she couldn't seem to make herself move. Clare, Luca said softly, I want to see you again. Not here, not as a customer. On a real date. Would you like that? Yes, Clare said without hesitation. I'd like that very much. Luca smiled, and it was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. Good. How about this weekend? I know a little place by the lake. Great coffee, better pastries. We could talk more. That sounds perfect. They exchanged phone numbers, and when Luca walked Clare out to help her get a cab, he pressed a gentle kiss to her cheek that made her skin tingle. Text me when you get home safe, he said. Please. I will. In the cab on the way back to her apartment, Clare couldn't stop smiling. It was crazy. It was too fast. It was everything she'd been told not to do after ending a relationship. But it felt right in a way nothing had felt right in a very long time. She texted Luca when she got home. just like she'd promised. He responded immediately with a simple, "Sweet dreams, Claire," that made her heart flutter. She fell asleep that night, thinking about blue eyes and gentle hands, and the way Luca had looked at Marcus like he was prepared to go to war for a woman he'd just met. The weekend came faster than Claire expected. She changed her outfit 4 times before settling on a simple sundress in pale blue, comfortable flats and her favorite cardigan. Casual but pretty. Effortless, even though it took an hour to achieve. Luca was waiting for her outside the coffee shop when she arrived, and her breath caught at the sight of him. He was wearing jeans and a white button-down, with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, his dark hair slightly tousled by the breeze off the lake. He looked relaxed and happy, and so handsome it almost hurt to look at him. "You're here," he said, smiling as she approached. "Did you think I wouldn't come?" "I hoped you would, but I would have understood if you'd changed your mind. After all, I'm just the crazy restaurant owner who inserted himself into your date." Claire laughed. Best insertion ever, if you ask me. They got coffee and pastries and walked along the lakefront, talking about everything and nothing. Luca told her about his family back in Naples, about his grandmother who'd taught him to cook, about his 3 younger sisters who still called him every Sunday without fail. Claire told him about growing up in Iowa, about her parents who'd been so proud when she got the job in Chicago, about the quiet life she'd left behind in search of something more. "Have you found it?" Luca asked. "The something more?" Claire looked at him, at the way the sunlight caught in his dark hair, at the genuine interest in his eyes. "I think maybe I'm starting to." They spent the whole day together. Coffee turned into lunch, which turned into a long walk through the botanical gardens, which turned into dinner at a tiny Thai place Luca knew where the owner greeted him like family. It was dark by the time Luca walked Claire back to her apartment, and she didn't want the day to end. "I had a really wonderful time," she said when they reached her building. "So did I." Luca brushed a strand of hair back from her face, his fingers lingering on her cheek. "Claire, I need to tell you something." Her stomach dropped. Here it came. The catch. The reason this was too good to be true. "What is it?" "My life. It's complicated. My family, the business. There are things about my world that aren't always easy to understand. But I want you to know that whatever happens, I will always be honest with you, and I will always protect you. You don't have to be afraid of anything when you're with me." It was a strange thing to say, Claire thought. Cryptic, but the earnestness in Luca's eyes made her believe he meant every word. "Okay," she said softly. "I trust you." "You shouldn't. Not yet. But I'm going to earn it." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and perfect, and Claire felt like she was floating. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were smiling. "I'll call you tomorrow," Luca promised. "I'll be waiting." The next few weeks were like something out of a dream. Luca called every day, just like he'd promised. They saw each other as often as their schedules allowed, which wasn't as often as Claire would have liked, but every moment they spent together felt precious. Luca was unlike anyone she'd ever dated. He was attentive without being clingy, protective without being controlling. He listened when she talked about her day, remembered small details about her life, surprised her with her favorite flowers just because. But there was also something mysterious about him. He kept odd hours sometimes, disappeared for meetings he couldn't tell her about, and on more than one occasion, Claire caught glimpses of a harder side to him. The way his expression would go cold when he was on the phone, the way certain people seemed almost afraid of him when they crossed paths on the street. She told herself it didn't matter. Everyone had parts of their life they kept private, right? Then Marcus came back. Claire was leaving work one evening, exhausted after a long day of audit prep, when she saw him leaning against her car in the parking garage. Her stomach clenched. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" "I wanted to talk to you." He pushed off from the car and walked toward her. He looked rough, like he hadn't been sleeping well. "I've been thinking about what happened at the restaurant, and I owe you an apology." "You do," Claire said carefully, keeping her distance, "but I'm not sure I'm ready to hear it." "Claire, please. I was an idiot. I was stressed about work, and I took it out on you, and that was wrong. I miss you, I miss us." "There is no us anymore, Marcus." His expression darkened. "Is this about that waiter? Are you seeing him?" "That's none of your business." "So, you are seeing him?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "I can't believe you'd throw away what we had for some guy who serves pasta for a living." "He owns the restaurant, Marcus, and even if he didn't, he treats me better in one conversation than you did in 6 months." "Oh, he owns a restaurant. I'm so impressed." Marcus's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Do you have any idea who his family is, Claire? Do you know what kind of business they're really in?" Something cold slithered down Claire's spine. "What are you talking about?" "I did some digging after that night. Luca Moretti, the Moretti family. They're connected, Claire. As in, organized crime connected. Your boyfriend is in the Mafia." Claire wanted to laugh it off, to tell Marcus he was being ridiculous, but something about the way he said it, combined with all those little mysteries about Luca's life, made her pause. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Ask him yourself. Ask him about his family's import business. Ask him why half the restaurants in Little Italy pay him protection money. Ask him what really happened to the guy who tried to open a competing restaurant 2 blocks from Moretti's." "Get away from me, Marcus." "I'm trying to help you. This guy is dangerous, Claire. He might seem all charming and protective now, but men like that, they're violent. They hurt people. Is that really what you want?" "What I want is for you to leave me alone." Claire's voice shook, but she stood her ground. "We're done, Marcus. We've been done. And whatever Luca is or isn't, it's my choice to make, not yours. Fine. But don't come crying to me when you end up at the bottom of the Chicago River." He stormed off, leaving Claire standing alone in the parking garage, with her heart pounding and her mind racing. She sat in her car for 20 minutes trying to decide what to do. Part of her wanted to call Luca immediately, to demand answers, but another part of her was afraid. What if Marcus was right? What if Luca had been lying to her this whole time? In the end, she drove home and spent the night staring at her phone, Luca's number pulled up on the screen, unable to make herself press call. He called her instead the next morning, like he always did. "Good morning, beautiful. How did you sleep?" Claire closed her eyes. His voice was so warm, so familiar. Could someone who sounded like that really be involved in organized crime? "Luca, I need to ask you something." The warmth in his voice disappeared, replaced by caution. "What's wrong?" "Marcus cornered me last night. He said things about you." "About your family." Silence on the other end of the line. "Luca. What did he say exactly?" "He said your family is in the Mafia. That you're involved in organized crime." The words sounded absurd coming out of her mouth, like dialogue from a bad movie. "Tell me he's lying, Luca. Tell me he's just trying to mess with my head because he's jealous." More silence, stretching so long Claire thought the call had dropped. Then quietly, "We need to talk. In person. Can you come to the restaurant? Tonight, after closing?" Claire's heart sank. "Oh, God. It's true, isn't it? Claire, please. Let me explain. This isn't a conversation we should have over the phone. Just tell me yes or no. Is Marcus right about you?" She heard Luca take a deep breath. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy with something that sounded like regret. "It's more complicated than that. But yes, my family has connections to certain organizations, and yes, I'm involved in aspects of the business that aren't entirely legal. But I swear to you, Claire, I have never lied to you about who I am. I just haven't told you everything yet." Claire felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. "I need to think. Please don't shut me out. Give me a chance to explain, to help you understand. Come to the restaurant tonight. Let me tell you the whole truth. I don't know if I can trust you anymore. Then let me earn it back. Please, Claire. I'm asking you to give me one more chance." She wanted to say no, wanted to hang up and block his number and pretend the last few weeks had never happened. But despite everything, despite the fear and the confusion, she still cared about him. Maybe even loved him. "Fine, I'll be there at 10. Thank you." And Claire? I know you're scared, but I promise you, I would never hurt you. You're safe with me. You'll always be safe with me. The restaurant was dark when Claire arrived that night, except for a single table in the back lit by candlelight. Luca was waiting for her, still dressed in his work clothes, looking tired and worried. "You came," he said as she approached. "I almost didn't." "But you did. That means something." Claire sat down across from him, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "So talk. Tell me the truth." Luca poured them both wine with steady hands, then sat back in his chair. "My family has been in the restaurant business for 5 generations, but we've also been involved in other enterprises. Protection, imports, loans. Things that exist in the gray areas of the law. The Mafia," Claire said flatly. "We don't use that word, but yes, essentially. My grandfather was a boss in Naples. My father continued the tradition when we came to America. I grew up in this world, Claire. It's all I've ever known. And you're involved in it, in the illegal parts. Yes, the restaurant is legitimate, completely clean. But I also oversee certain aspects of the family business. I make sure our interests are protected. I handle disputes. I manage relationships with other families." Claire felt sick. "What does that mean, you handle disputes?" "It means I make sure problems get solved before they escalate. Sometimes that involves negotiation. Sometimes it involves intimidation. And yes, sometimes it involves violence, though I try to avoid that when possible." "Oh my God!" Claire stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "You're telling me you hurt people. You're a criminal." Luca stood too, but didn't try to approach her. "I'm telling you the truth, like I promised I would. I'm not a good man by conventional standards, Claire. I've done things I'm not proud of. But everything I do to protect my family and the people who depend on us. The gray areas of my business feed a lot of families in this neighborhood, provide jobs to people who couldn't get them anywhere else. That doesn't make it right. No, it doesn't. But it's the reality of my world. And I won't lie to you and pretend I'm something I'm not." Claire wrapped her arms around herself, trying to process what she was hearing. This man she'd been falling for. This man who'd been so gentle and kind with her was essentially admitting to being a mobster. "Why didn't you tell me this before? Why let me get involved with you if you knew what your life was like?" "Because I'm selfish," Luca said simply. "Because from the moment I saw you that night, fighting back tears and refusing to let that bastard break you, I knew I wanted you in my life. I knew I should stay away from you, that you deserved better than someone like me. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't let you go. This is insane. We barely know each other." "I know. But tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me the last few weeks have meant nothing to you, and I'll walk away right now. I'll disappear from your life, and you'll never have to see me again." Claire opened her mouth to say exactly that. To tell him it had all been a mistake. A foolish infatuation that never should have happened. But the words wouldn't come. Because it wasn't true. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't tell you that." Luca's expression softened. "Claire?" "But I can't do this either, Luca. I can't be with someone who's involved in organized crime. I can't live my life wondering if you're going to get arrested or killed, or if someone's going to use me to get to you. That's not the life I want." "I understand. I do. But before you make your final decision, there's something else you should know." "What?" "Marcus didn't just happen to corner you in that parking garage. He's been following you, taking pictures of us together. He hired a private investigator to dig into my background." Claire's blood went cold. "How do you know that?" "Because I've been having you followed too. For your protection. And my people noticed his people watching you. You've been having me followed. For how long?" "Since the night we met. I needed to make sure Marcus didn't try to come after you, and I needed to know if anyone from rival families tried to use you to get to me. I was protecting you." "No, you were controlling me, just like Marcus did, just in a different way." Claire grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "I can't believe I thought you were different. But you're just like him. Just another man who thinks he knows what's best for me. Claire, wait! But she was already gone, practically running out of the restaurant and into the night. She heard Luca calling after her, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. If she stopped, if she turned around and saw the look on his face, she might not have the strength to leave. She made it halfway down the block before the black SUV pulled up beside her. The back door opened, and a man she'd never seen before stepped out. He was big, well over 6 feet, with a scar running down the left side of his face. And he was pointing a gun directly at her chest. "Get in the car, Miss Thompson. Nice and quiet. Don't make a scene." Claire's scream was cut off as another man grabbed her from behind, clamping a hand over her mouth. She struggled, tried to fight, but they were too strong. Within seconds, they had her in the SUV, the door slamming shut behind them. The last thing she saw before they pushed a cloth over her face was Luca running out of the restaurant, his expression one of pure terror. Then everything went black. When Claire woke up, her head was pounding and her mouth tasted like chemicals. She was sitting in a chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse, her hands zip-tied behind her back. The scarred man from the SUV was standing a few feet away, talking on his phone. "Yeah, we got her. Tell Moretti if he wants to see his girlfriend again, he needs to agree to our terms. Otherwise, we start sending him pieces." Claire's stomach lurched. This was really happening. She'd been kidnapped by people who wanted to use her as leverage against Luca. The man hung up and turned to look at her. "You're awake. Good. Maybe we can have some fun while we wait for your boyfriend to stop being stubborn." "Please," Claire's voice came out as a croak. "Please, I'm nobody. Luca and I aren't even together. We only went on a few dates. I'm not worth anything to him." The man laughed. "Nice try, sweetheart. But we've been watching you two. The way he looks at you, you're worth something to him, all right. Question is, how much?" Hours passed. Claire sat in that chair, terrified and alone, except for the 2 men who guarded her. They didn't hurt her, but they made comments that suggested they might, if they got bored enough. She tried not to think about what would happen if Luca didn't come for her. She tried not to think about the fact that part of her desperately wanted him to. Then, just when Claire thought she couldn't take another minute, she heard it. Gunshots, shouting, the sound of breaking glass. Her guards pulled their weapons and ran toward the noise, leaving Claire alone in the room. She struggled against the zip ties, trying desperately to free herself. But they were too tight. More gunshots. Closer now. Then silence. The door to the room burst open, and Luca was there, a gun in his hand and blood on his shirt. Their eyes met across the room, and the expression on his face was one Claire would never forget. Relief and rage and fear all mixed together. "Claire." He was across the room in seconds, cutting through her zip ties with a knife he pulled from his boot. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "I'm okay," Claire said, even though she was shaking so hard she could barely get the words out. "I'm okay, Luca." He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. She could feel his heart pounding against her chest, could feel the tremor in his hands as he ran them through her hair. "I thought I'd lost you," he said into her hair. "I thought I'd gotten you killed." "How did you find me?" "I have resources. The second they took you, every person in my organization was looking for you. We tracked the SUV, followed it here." He pulled back to look at her face, his hands framing her cheeks. "This is my fault. This is exactly what I was trying to protect you from. And I failed. Luca, those men outside, they'll never hurt anyone again," he said flatly. "And before you ask, no, I don't regret it. They took you. They threatened you. That's a death sentence in my world." Claire should have been horrified, should have pulled away from him and demanded to be taken to the police. But all she could think about was that Luca had come for her. He'd risked everything to save her. "Take me home," she whispered. "Please, Luca, just take me home." He did, sending his men to clean up the warehouse while he drove Claire back to her apartment himself. Neither of them spoke during the drive. What was there to say? When they arrived, Luca walked her to her door. I'll have men stationed outside your building tonight, he said quietly. Just in case. And tomorrow I'll arrange for you to leave Chicago if you want. Go somewhere safe, somewhere my world can't touch you. Is that what you want? Claire asked, her hand on the doorknob. For me to leave? No, but it's what's best for you. I should never have brought you into this. You were right. I'm just like Marcus, trying to control your life to suit my needs. That's not true, isn't it? I had you followed without your permission. I kept secrets from you. And now you've been kidnapped and traumatized because of me. Claire turned to face him fully. You also saved my life. You came for me when you didn't have to. You could have let them kill me and saved yourself the trouble. Don't. Luca's voice was harsh. Don't ever suggest that I would let something happen to you. I would burn this entire city to the ground before I let anyone hurt you. I know, Claire said softly. That's the problem, isn't it? You care about me too much, and I care about you too much. Even though I shouldn't. Even though this is completely insane. You should go inside, get some rest. Come with me. Luca shook his head. That's not a good idea. I don't want to be alone tonight. Please, Luca, just come inside. We don't have to talk about anything. I just need you here. She could see the war in his eyes, the battle between what he wanted and what he thought was right. Finally, he nodded. They went inside, and Claire made tea. Neither of them drank while Luca sat on her couch, looking completely out of place in her small, cheerful apartment. Eventually, Claire sat down beside him. Tell me something true, she said. Something real about you that has nothing to do with your family or your business, just you. Luca was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm terrified of letting people in. I've spent my whole life building walls, keeping everyone at a distance except family. It's safer that way, cleaner. But then I met you, and every wall I've ever built just crumbled. I've never felt this vulnerable in my life, and it scares me more than any gun or rival family ever could. Claire reached over and took his hand. I'm scared too. Everything about this terrifies me, but I can't walk away from you, Luca. I've tried to talk myself into it 12 times, and I just can't do it. You should, for your own safety. Maybe. But when has playing it safe ever led to anything great? She shifted closer to him. Tonight, when those men took me, all I could think about was that I might never see you again, that I'd left things with us angry and unfinished, that I'd never get to tell you that I'm falling in love with you. Luca's breath caught. Claire, I know it's crazy. I know we barely know each other. I know your life is complicated and dangerous and nothing like what I imagined for myself, but I'm falling for you anyway. And if you're willing to try, if you're willing to let me into your world and be honest with me about all of it, then I want to be with you. You don't know what you're asking. Then tell me. Explain it to me. But don't shut me out and decide what's best for me. I'm a grown woman, Luca. Let me make my own choices. He looked at her for a long moment, and she could see everything he was feeling written on his face. The desire to say yes. The fear of what it would mean. The knowledge that loving him could get her killed. Then he kissed her. It was different from their first kiss. Desperate where that one had been sweet. Claiming where that one had been tentative. It was a kiss that said everything words couldn't, that promised protection and devotion, and forever if she was brave enough to take it. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. If we do this, Luca said, his forehead resting against hers, we do it right. No more secrets. I tell you everything, even the parts that will scare you. And you tell me if it ever becomes too much. Deal? Deal, Claire whispered. And you let me protect you. You let my men watch over you, keep you safe. I can't lose you, Claire. I won't survive it. Okay. He kissed her again, softer this time. I love you. I know it's too soon and too fast and completely insane, but I love you. I think I loved you from the moment you refused to cry in front of that worthless jerk. Claire smiled against his lips. I love you, too. They spent the rest of the night on her couch, talking about everything and nothing. Luca told her about his work, about the family business, about the careful balance he walked between legitimate enterprise and less legal pursuits. He told her about the enemies he'd made, the alliances he'd forged, the weight of responsibility that came with his last name. And Clare listened to all of it, asking questions when she needed to, offering comfort when she could. It was overwhelming and frightening, and nothing she'd ever prepared for. But it was also honest, real, and that mattered more than she'd realized. As the sun started to rise through her windows, Luca pulled her closer. I want you to marry me, he said quietly. Claire's heart stopped. What? I know it's too soon. I know we should wait, do this properly. But in my world, Clare, marriage means protection. It means your family, and family is sacred. No one would dare touch you if you were my wife. Luca, we can't get married just for protection. That's not the only reason. I want to marry you because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Because you make me want to be better than I am. Because when I think about my future, you're in every part of it. He cupped her face in his hands. But I also won't lie and pretend that your safety isn't a factor. It is. I need to know you're protected. Always. Claire's mind was spinning. This was crazy. They'd known each other for less than 2 months. People didn't get married this quickly, not in real life. But then again, people didn't usually fall in love with mafia bosses in real life either. Ask me again in 6 months, she said finally. If we're still together, if we still feel this way, then ask me again, and I promise I'll say yes. Luca smiled. That devastating smile that made her heart race. 6 months. I can work with that. He kissed her forehead. But I'm going to protect you like you're already my wife. That's non-negotiable. I can live with that. The next 6 months were unlike anything Clare could have imagined. Luca kept his promise about honesty, bringing her fully into his world. She met his family, his associates, learned the intricate politics of his organization. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. She also learned that loving a man like Luca Moretti meant accepting that danger would always be part of their lives. There were nights he came home with bruised knuckles and wouldn't talk about where he'd been. There were phone calls that made his expression go cold and hard. There were men who looked at her with speculation, wondering if she was a weakness they could exploit. But there was also safety in a way she'd never known before. Luca's protection meant no one dared to bother her, to disrespect her, to make her feel small. His love meant waking up every morning knowing she was cherished, valued, seen. And on the 6-month anniversary of the night he'd saved her from that warehouse, Luca took her back to his restaurant. The same table where they'd had their first real conversation, the same candles, the same wine. But this time, when the meal was finished, Luca got down on one knee. Clare Thompson, he said, pulling out a ring that sparkled in the candlelight. 6 months ago you told me to ask you again, so I'm asking. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my family? Will you let me spend the rest of my life protecting you and loving you and thanking God that Marcus was stupid enough to let you go? Clare laughed through her tears. Yes. Yes, Luca. I'll marry you. He slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her, and the entire restaurant erupted in applause. Only then did Clare realize that all the tables were filled with people she'd come to know over the last 6 months. Luca's family, his men, her co-workers who'd gradually learned about her unusual relationship. And standing in the back, looking uncomfortable but present, were her parents, who'd flown in from Iowa for the surprise. You told my parents? Clare whispered to Luca. I wanted to do this right, asked for their blessing and everything. And they gave it? Even knowing who you are? I was very persuasive, Luca said with a grin. Plus, your father said anyone who looks at his daughter the way I look at you can't be all bad. Clare threw her arms around his neck and kissed him again, not caring who was watching. That night, after the celebration, after the champagne and the well wishes and the promises of a wedding to rival any Chicago had ever seen, Luca and Clare stood together on the balcony of his penthouse apartment overlooking the city. "No regrets?" Luca asked, his arms wrapped around her from behind. "Not even one," Clare said, leaning back against his chest. "Although I do have one question." "What's that?" "Whatever happened to Marcus?" Luca's arms tightened around her. "Do you really want to know?" Clare thought about it. About the man who'd threatened her, belittled her, tried to make her feel worthless. About the night Luca had stood up for her when no one else would. About the choice she'd made to step into a world she didn't fully understand because she loved a man who would quite literally kill for her. "No," she said finally. "I don't think I do." "Good, because he's not worth thinking about. You're safe. I'm here, and we have the rest of our lives ahead of us." Clare turned in his arms to face him. "I love you, Luca Moretti." "I love you too, future Mrs. Moretti." They kissed under the Chicago stars, two people who should never have met. Never should have fallen in love. Never should have worked. But somehow, against all odds, they did. And in that moment, with Luca's arms around her and his ring on her finger, and the whole complicated, dangerous, beautiful future stretched out before them, Clare had never been more certain of anything in her life. Sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes danger and safety are two sides of the same coin. And sometimes love means stepping into the unknown with someone who promises to guard your heart as fiercely as they guard their empire. As Luca would say, in his world, family was everything. And Clare was family now. Forever.